Assalamu alaikum guys. So today our next topic of chapter acid bases and salts. So in this lecture we will study about bases and alkalis. Okay. So what is a base? A base is any metal oxide or hydroxide that reacts with an acid to produce a salt and water only. Okay. So what is a base? Base is any metal oxide or hydroxide. Okay. Any metal oxide or hydroxide that reacts with an acid to produce salt and reacts with an acid produce salt and water. So that's the definition of a base. Okay. So some of examples of bases are sodium oxide. Okay. So sodium oxide. These are some examples of base. And what is the formula? It's NaO, Na2O. Okay, because oxygen has two charge. Okay, that's why the two charge will transfer to Na. Na has one charge. Okay. And another example is zinc oxide, okay? And what's its formula? It's an ZNO, okay? Zinc has two charge and oxygen has two. These two charges will cancel out, and that's how this is derived. And then the other example we may also say copper, okay? So copper oxide, copper blue oxide, okay? Not just copper, but copper blue oxide. And what will be symbol? It will be Cu. So that's some of the examples. So that's what does this definition means? A metal oxide or hydroxide that reacts with an acid to produce salt and water. Okay. So what does this mean? So it means that when a metal oxide or hydroxide reacts with an acid, they produce salt and water. Okay. So basically it means that when a base reacts with acid, it produces salt and water. Okay. So it produces salt and water. We can write this reaction, this base plus acid reaction, like you may take a base copper oxide, okay, as we have seen this copper oxide is a base, right? This copper, so let's take copper oxide and let's take an acid, dilute sulfuric acid, okay? Copper oxide, so copper oxide is CuO, it's a solid base mostly, and let's take H2SO4, means hydro dilute sulfuric acid, H2, which is aqueous H2SO4, okay? Wait, yes. And when we react these, when the base reacts with an acid, what happens? Salt means copper sulfate, okay? Copper 2 sulfate means basically it's copper 2 sulfate because we're using copper 2 plus water means H2O is produced, okay? And this is aqueous and this is a liquid. H2, as we know, that H2O is just in a liquid form also, okay? And if you want to write the ionic equation, we can write, but we are not writing in this lecture, okay? So what is an alkali? An alkali is a base that is soluble in water, okay? An alkali, now let's start alkali, okay? So alkali, what is an alkali? A base that is soluble in water, okay? It is a base that is soluble, soluble in water, okay? Base that is soluble in water. So when a base reacts with water means a base reacts with water means when an alkali reacts with water, it produces an alkali hydroxide, okay? Means that like we react with sodium oxide, for example. Let's react sodium oxide, which is a base. So a water soluble base means an alkali with water. What happens? It forms sodium hydroxide. Okay, means like sodium hydroxide means NaOH, which is aqueous, and sodium means NaO, Na2O, Na2O, and plus H2O. H2O is liquid, and Na2O is solid. When we do this reaction, it becomes NaOH aqueous. Okay, so what are some examples of an alkali? Example of an alkali. So some examples of an alkali is that sodium hydroxide, okay, is an example of alkali. Sodium hydroxide is an example of alkali. And we can also say potassium hydroxide is also an alkali example. Potassium hydroxide is an example of an alkali. And calcium hydroxide is also an example of an alkali. Okay, hydroxide as an example of an alkali. So basically, an alkali is a substance that produces hydrogen hydroxide ions. Okay, means OH and negative ions. Aqueous solution means that when a base mixes with in water, it produces OH negative OH. Can you see this OH ions? Can you see this OH ions? So it produces OH ions when it dissolves in water. Okay, like let me write this definition. An alkali is a substance. You should note these definition because they are very important and they come in the exams also. Okay, produces hydroxide ions means OH negative ions. Okay, hydroxide ion means OH negative ions in aqueous solution. Okay, so let's do some examples that when ammonia gas dissolves in water, what happens? That ammonium ions and hydroxide ions are formed. Okay, so when ammonia is a base, okay, ammonium gas, ammonia gas. So what happens when it dissolves in water? What happens? What are produced? Ammonium ions and hydroxide ions. Okay, so you can relate this with the definition that they produce OH negative means hydroxide ions when they are dissolved in water in aqueous solution. Okay, so let's choose some of the equations also. Okay, so let's choose some of the equations. Let's take sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide. So when they dissolve in the water, what happens? Sodium ion are produced and hydroxide ions are also produced. Okay, I hope you are getting it. And hydroxide ions are also produced. So now let's go on the properties of base, or you may say alkali. Okay, properties of base slash alkalis. So what's the first property? First property is that it has a bitter taste. Okay, bitter taste, and they also feel sloppy. Okay, sloppy means like if you take a soap, so it feels like a little bit slippery. So that's the feeling of a soap cleaning. Okay, as as soap is a base. Okay, you should know it out. That salt is also a base. Okay, and now what's the third property of alkali is that it turns red liquids blue. Okay, it turns moist red litmus blue. Okay, that's also a property of an acid and of an oh, not an acid of an alkali and or a base. Okay, so and what's the how we determine if it's a strong strong base or a weak base. So we determine it that how much alkaline it is in nature. So the more alkaline it is, the more strong it is. Okay, that's also means that uh higher its pH, higher it will be stronger. Okay, so the above seven pH substances are alkali. Okay, alkali or base you may say. Okay, so now the third uh, property of an alkali or base is that when alkali react with acid, they form salt and water only. It means that when alkali react with acid, they form salt plus water. And this reaction is also known as neutralization. Okay, this is the general equation for neutralization reaction. Reaction, reaction. This is the general thing for neutralization reaction. For example, you may take sodium hydroxide. Let's do another example of neutralization reaction. Let's take sodium hydroxide. Let's write it in points. And let's write an equation, okay? So sodium hydroxide means NaOH because it has hydroxide, which is aqueous plus HCl means acid, which is also aqueous. So and when they react, what they form? Salt. Salt means sodium chloride is formed, which is mostly at the table salt also, which is also known as table salt. So NaCl is formed, which is aqueous plus H2O means water is formed, which is liquid. Okay, this is an example of neutralization reaction. Okay, an example of neutralization reaction. Let's how can you tell if a reaction is a neutralization reaction? So how can you tell? We can tell it when we observe the reaction that what is produced, if a salt is produced or water is produced. So by this we can determine if it's a neutralization reaction. So now let's choose some uses of bases and alkali. Okay, uses of bases and alkalis. Let's choose some uses of bases and alkalis. So let's take a pen. Let's take blue color. Sure. So yes. So what are some uses of bases? So like we use magnesium oxide as anticide for relieving gastric pain and for making refractory bricks. Okay, so we use magnesium oxide. We use magnesium oxide for what? For uh, as an antacide, antacide, and antacide means those pills which are we use for relieving gastric pain. Okay, and we use it for making refractory bricks. Okay, so it is also used in refractory bricks. This is the first use of base or alkali. Okay, now let's go on the second use. Uh, So the second use is in making in the preparation of a soap. So what is used in preparation of a soap? Sodium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide or and potassium hydroxide is used in making of soap. Okay, in making of soap. Now let's go on the third use that calcium hydroxide is used to reduce acidity in soil. Okay, so the farmers use calcium hydroxide in soil. Okay, to reduce acidity. Okay. Now the other thing which the other use of a base or alkali is the ammonium solution that which is used for making fertilizers. Okay. So number fourth use is of ammonium solution. Okay. How is ammonium solution used? It is used for making fertilizers. So these are some of the uses of alkali, and I hope that is for this class. And in this class, we have discussed what is a base, what is an alkali, the main properties of a base, that it turns red liquid blue paper, it is a bitter in taste, it, it produces ammonia gas when heated with ammonium salts, and it and react with a solution of one metal salt to give another metal salt and metal hydroxide, and it reacts with acid to form salt and water, and that is also known as neutralization. And the uses of alkali and bases. And that's all for today, guys. So in the next class, inshallah, we will discuss types of sites, which will be the last class for not last for basically the last class for bases, but not for the whole chapter. Okay, and from then we will focus acid and bases, two topics, and the last topic means the salt topic will be left. Inshallah, we will cover it soon. I hope you like the class. Inshallah, we will soon be making the video on types of oxide. So do pray for me because I'm having some papers. I hope you have got the main points in this video and have helped you well. Okay, bye, bye, bye.